more,
In preparing this presentation, the issue of meaning repeatedly came to mind. I guess it all began about 3 years ago when I whimsically asked myself, what does meaning mean? Pursuing this question further unexpectedly brought me to at least a two-pronged answer. Without doing any homework at all, I initially assumed meaning to be derived from the noun and adjective mean, in the sense of median. This evidently traces back to Middle English mene and Latin medianus. Based on this assumption, meaning would seem to be something mediating between subject and object, in effect filtering and partially getting in the way of what one wishes to fully understand. Admittedly, I dislike this, as it assumes a state of perpetual alienation between me and everything else. Interestingly, this etymology also ties in with mean, in the sense of cruel or ill-natured. This adjectival use of mean evidently denotes leading a median existence, lacking distinction. It is a synonym for common, derived from Old English gemene, also etymologically related to mean. Mean, as a verb in the sense of meaning, however, actually traces back to Middle English meinen and Old High German meinen, both meaning to have in mind. I suspect that these and similar expressions may trace back further to Sanskrit manas, which works its way into familiar Sanskrit terms like mantra, but also acts as the etymological root of mind. Thus, meaning is what engages the mind, and this engaged sense of meaning is more appealing to me in many ways. I now give a tentative sense of what meaning is, as follows. The maximum engaged pace of mental activity that can be tracked by oneself, and with which one can feel truly at home. This necessarily requires me to ongoingly step up my own mental pace and allows meaning and myself both to evolve. By this reasoning, absolute meaninglessness does not exist. All phenomena either fall in or out of critical proximity with me and either have more meaning or less, but no utter absence of meaning. Thus, I shudder at Saussure's sweeping generalization about linguistic signs. As he says, in the matter of language, people have always been satisfied with ill-defined units. Though Saussure's nascent attempts at semantics may have been well-meant, I still suspect none of his friends were ever poets. Shortly after Saussure, Alfred North Whitehead wrote Science in the Modern World, which, Fuller notes, solidified the rift between science and the humanities. The ultimate aim was to standardize value-neutral thinking against the humanities' unwieldy diversity of personal expression. As may now be seen, however, standardize means marginalize. Neutral values assume one to be everywhere at once or nowhere at all. Our various levels of conscious awareness actually work quite differently from this, however. For something or things is always quite literally on our minds and is quite far from nothing or everything. Value-neutral thinking, underpinning such fields as Western science and psychology, tacitly assumed an observer's personal thoughts to be easily put aside and not significantly affect the observed. But each of us does have a personal life and doesn't wish to compromise it for long. Early Western interpretations of Madhyamaka Buddhism were thus quite skewed. The Sanskrit madhya also relates to Latin medianus, so madhyamaka means the middle way. But middle of what and what, one might ask? Many would see this as a grudging middle ground between extremes, but then the Buddhist notion of equanimity would be a synonym for banality, though it is certainly a much more transcendent mental state than this. Nor should equanimity be equated with apathy or indifference, which tacitly place us nowhere and dismiss our experience as nothing. Indeed, high equanimity as a meditative state leaves nothing out and is only achieved after states of deepest bliss and deepest suffering. If we don't experience or know everything, how do we attain such equanimity? Perhaps we can test the limits of our ever-changing knowledge and experience by keeping pace with the way they both change. The ever-changing verb-noun that we are is, after all, always part of everything. Perhaps equanimity is what Fuller called dynamic equilibrium, with equilibrium etymologically meaning something like equally free. Equality as a present-day socio-political concept assumes a level playing field, but our immediate, highly textured sensory mental experience has never operationally experienced any such levelness. Some of us seem bigger, smaller, nearer, further than others, so few of us are clear about this most well-intentioned concept of equality. Perhaps our invisible but constant mental evolution should be the real common denominator for our equality. Once said by the 18th century Irish lawyer John Philpot Curran, the condition upon which God hath given liberty to man is eternal vigilance, so keeping pace with our mental evolution more vigilantly with each fraction of a moment could be the real issue here. Less, more, more, less.